Hello, everyone, and welcome to Now Our Watch is Ending, or NOWIE, the NOWIE Postgame show after Season 8, Episode 5 of Game of Thrones, the penultimate episode, the second to last episode of not only Season 8, but also the entire series. I am Bronsteris. This live stream was created by Lucifer Means Lightbringer, or LML. He's turned it over to me. And I have here with me Stephen Stark right now, and we're going to be joined by others as well. At the very least, Sarah O'Connor and Melanie Lot 7. If we're very lucky, we might get an appearance from Emma Smith. It's 6 hours later where she is than where I am. So, Stephen, why don't you start by introducing yourself and telling people where they can find you?
Hi, everybody. My name is Stephen Stark. I'm off camera right now because I'm dealing with my stress in a very non-productive way. Let's just say that. You can find me on my YouTube channel. Search for Stephen Stark with Stephen with a V. You'll find me. I like to talk about various fandom stuff over on my channel. And Bronte, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
It's an honor to have you on, Stephen, and a pleasure. I'm so glad you're here. Stephen is one of the pillars of this community. Can't find a nicer guy, more selfless, really just and brilliant, really wonderful, wonderful person. I'm so glad you're here with us. So let's start the process of processing what just happened. I mean, Stephen and I and Melanie, who's going to be on very soon in a few minutes, were communicating before, well, after the episode ended and before now, saying a lot of, well, let's just say expressing a lot of surprise at how this episode went. Really second only, in my case, to the Night King dying early. This was so shocking to me. I mean, it's true that just about everything that happened was something that we discussed the possibility of. But I guess that wasn't the same for me as seeing it happen. And we've got in the chat, even already in the chat, there's radical differences of opinion about this. This is going to be another polarizing episode. Some people have said that it was the best episode ever. They loved it. Some people hated it. Someone in the chat very fairly indicted those of us, including me, who didn't really think that in the end they were going to make Dany go full mad queen. I believe that those are the terms of the person in the chat. And I didn't think that. And I was shocked when they did it.
I'm right there with you, Bronsteris. I've been a Daenerys apologist as early as this morning. You know, I said, I think it's all a misdirect. I think they're setting it up. And I remember looking at the clock and it was 8:47. I said, you know, I'll clean up my language a little bit for the children, but let's just say that I suggested that Daenerys could go have sex with herself. You know, just I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
You know, right? Look, see, everything you said is perfect. Right? I mean, we did. But now we pre-game this afternoon, a couple hours before the episode. And I mean, again, it was all I had said that I thought that going into this season, that it was sort of like with the last season where they wanted to make it look like Arya and Sansa were at each other's throats, potentially going to kill each other. But then they were always planning to just make it look like that and then walk it back. And I thought it was the same thing with Dany. They were going to make it look like she was going to do something like this, but then they were going to walk it back and she wasn't. And I said, kudos to them because they've done such a good job of it that I actually kind of believe she's going to do it or she might do it. But I still didn't really think so. And I certainly didn't think that she would do it to the degree that she did. Because it would be one thing if she had like set fire to the Lannister soldiers. If she believed that the bells were a trick, which I thought the episode was setting up. Now, at the time they rang them, it was pretty clear it wasn't a trick. The soldiers threw down their weapons. But still, if she thought she's not going to take any chances, she's going to kill the Lannister soldiers, and then maybe it was unexpected that wildfire was going to happen. She didn't know about that, and it leads to a catastrophe. That at least I could have seen. I didn't think she was going to go even that far, but at least I could understand. But she's burning the citizens. If I recall correctly, Stephen, am I right? I mean,
oh yes, you are very right. I was keeping very close track, and I was saying things like, okay, she's attacking Euron ships. These are military target. Okay, she's attacking the Scorpions. It's smart. She's not even engaging the army. She's taking out their artillery positions because they're the biggest threat. She's being tactically sound in her decisions. She uses the dragon fire to blow open the gate, creating a breach. You know, I thought she was really smart. I thought everything was great until the bells rang and she said, I don't care about the bells. I'm just going to burn everybody. And it doesn't even make tactical sense.
Exactly. It doesn't even make tactical sense. It doesn't. I mean, the explanation, I think, is madness. Oh, I see that Emma is in the chat. Emma, join us on the podcast. We need you to share this with us, at least for the first few minutes. I know you're going to go to bed soon, but please, we would benefit greatly. And we have others coming, but they're not here yet. So Emma, I sent the link in the in our Twitter DM. So I hope you can hear us, Emma, and I hope that you'll hop in here for a minute, because I want to hear your take too. I think what Stephen said, the last thing Stephen said, is so right and so much the right point to make. It didn't even make tactical sense. I think there was no reason. So I think we're being told two things about why she did it. Madness is one, and the other is fear, right? She says to Jon Snow, she wants love from him, and he can't give it to her because they're related and she's his aunt, and he can't give her what she wants in that way. And so she basically says, in Essos, I had love and fear. Here I have only fear. So I guess the decision, to the extent that it's a tactical decision, is I'm going to engender so much fear that everyone will just have to do what I want. And in a way, that is thematic. It's thematic in that we've been told from the beginning that is exactly the wrong way to be a leader. That's the Ramsay Bolton approach. That's the Cersei Lannister approach. And that's what you don't do. But man, I mean, Dany is the breaker of chains. She freed the slaves. Dany is way better than this. What the hell?
Dany crucified the wise masters, which, again, it's not the same level. Dany has made some really questionable choices along the way. The point is, I thought she had learned from them. And this episode appears that they've undone a lot of her sort of like sympathy for the common people. Why, I don't understand her turn. Psychologically, I guess I do, but I don't. Oh no.
Emma, it is fantastic to see you so that you can experience this with us. I understand any moment you're going to go to bed, but you said on the pregame you didn't like the idea of a lot of madness with women. We got it with Dany. We got it with Cersei. And your words rang in my ears while we were seeing it. And Stephen, you make a really good point. Dany's done it before with the masters, crucifying them. You're absolutely right. But still, as you say, you thought she had learned. And that was, at least the masters, not all of them, but they had done this terrible thing. But those people were innocent today. Okay, Emma, it's all you. Oh, but you're new.
Yeah, so I am not a very happy bunny this 3:30 a.m. This is a Emma that is trying her hardest to be polite because we're on the air, but I have feelings that are not good. This is it was a huge spectacle, and I mean, I guess we were saying something similar or at least I was trying to say something similar in the pregame about something like this happening in the Aegon Blackfire plotline. I didn't necessarily think they'd go all in with it being Endgame and stuff, and I'm not. That leaves kind of a bit of taste in my mouth, in that there's this inherent suggestion that now Jon, as the male ruler, is inherently better than the two female rulers that we get, and like in King's Landing, or the two female rulers that are explicitly vying to be queen. That has some unpleasant implications. Yeah.
On that point, Emma, here's what I think Benioff and Weiss are planning to say about all of this. If I'm going to guess correctly, which maybe, who knows? We'll see one more episode. Although I do have to say the guesses have gotten better as the season has gone along. They were pretty bad halfway through. But I think they're going to say, no, it's okay. And look, let me be clear. This is me in their voice, not my voice. So I'm not saying this. But I think they're going to say it's all okay about Dany and Cersei because Sansa's going to rule in the end. And she's a woman, so hey, it's not about women. It's going to be Sansa, and we're going to take the position that Sansa's even better than Jon, so that makes it okay. So what do you think about what I think they're going to say in that?
I mean, I guess, but then it's sort of like, oh, if you have a very one special woman, then maybe she could, like, that's the vibe that then gives me, is that ruling isn't something that is natural to women. This is, like, ironically, ruling isn't something that is natural to women. There's got to be a special one, and it's like a special one who became special because she was specifically abused to get there. It's like I'm not happy. And this, so the reason I wasn't on the stream was because I'm not happy, and I know I'm not, and I don't want to just trash the stream by just being mean, but I'm not. Yeah. I can't.
I'll play devil's advocate and be Benioff and Weiss again, because I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, but maybe what they would say is, you know what, most male rulers suck as well. Every now and then you get a Jaehaerys who's terrific, but mostly they're the Mad King, after all, wanted to burn them all. He was a man. So you got a lot of terrible male rulers and the occasional good one. You have terrible female rulers and the occasional good one. But having said that, I agree with you. I think that it was, I'm really surprised. I'm really surprised. And I have a thought about this. Maybe I'll say the thought and then throw it to the two of you. A lot of the time, when they've made references to the ancient events, and they do it again in this episode, they've said the reason doesn't matter. So, for example, when Beric and the Hound come upon the father and daughter, who the father has killed the daughter and he's dead himself, the one who the Hound digs the grave for, the one who the Hound had robbed previously, they see the father and daughter, and Beric is like Detective Beric Dondarrion. This is in season 7, and he says, I think they were starving. And they were starving, by the way, because the Hound robbed them. I think they were starving, and the father killed the daughter out of mercy and then killed himself. And the Hound says, it doesn't matter now. And Beric says, no, it doesn't matter now. And with Dany and Tyrion at the beginning of this episode, they say the same thing. Dany says, hey, it's Sansa who killed Varys, not me, because she told the secret. And I guess Tyrion says, doesn't matter now. And Dany says, no, it doesn't matter now. And so and we actually hear that a few times throughout the show. And I think what they're trying to say is, in the ancient times, Azor Ahai did this thing to the baby or Nissa or whoever, and blew up the world, and his reasons don't matter now, just the fact that he did it. But I'm going to say that I think the reasons do matter. If what Benioff and Weiss want to say is it doesn't matter why Dany blew up the world, just that she did it, I don't think that's true. Like, I think that we needed her to have a reason. And Steven's saying that correctly, that she didn't really have any reason to do this, not even a tactical reason. I would have liked a reason. I would have liked to understand better. Maybe they're saying it's just to instill fear, but I mean, it's so evil. She's just killing innocent people for the sake of killing innocent people. It doesn't even gain her anything. It probably loses her a lot. So would have been nice to have more of an understanding of what the heck is going on here.
I've got an answer for that. Her boyfriend just broke up with her. Clearly, that's like just going to send her over the edge. When your boyfriend breaks up with you, you can't. your brain stops working. Isn't that right, Emma?
Yeah, as someone who has, broken up with a guy, like the first thing I did is just get my pet dragon and massacre a couple million people. That's just,
Like you do.
As you do, because this is just, it's just so many problematic implications, and I am dreading watching the inside the episode tomorrow over lunch, which is usually my lunchtime pastime of just being like, oh my god, kind of forgot, and then fuck knows what it's going to be this time. Excuse my language. I know we're trying to avoid language, but
it's pretty late. It's pretty late where most people are watching this. Okay, so on the plus side, there was a lot of plus side actually. I thought that Clegane Bowl, and someone on the stream earlier today in the chat objected to the term Clegane Bowl, which is fair, but I think it kind of captures, for better and worse, how people have seen this. That the showrunners really wanted to have Gregor fight Sandor. It's been building from the very beginning, and it was going to be a spectacle, and it was also a spectacle that could fulfill certain themes of the show. And actually, I thought that worked. I didn't understand for the longest time, when we waited for 2 years for this season, how Clegane Bowl, Gregor versus Sandor, could possibly matter that much to me, because I knew that you're not supposed to want to take vengeance. I knew it's not going to have a happy ending. And it's a fight after all. It's a sword fight, so how great can it be? But my jaw dropped wide open when they went flying from such a height to their mutual deaths. And it was thematic, which is that revenge destroys everyone involved. It destroys the Avenger as well as the person against whom vengeance is being taken. We discussed this on the pregame today. It was totally vindicated by what happened in that fight, but not just in that fight. Sandor says it to Arya beforehand, right? He says, do you want to be like me, consumed by vengeance? I mean, that's what he's saying. And Arya realizes she doesn't want that, and she says, thank you. And it's amazing, because I thought it was too late for Arya to take a final turn, but apparently it's never too late, and maybe she will end up at Winterfell or with Gendry at Storm's End. She's gonna maybe have a life that isn't a life that's all about killing, and so I like that. Hi, Melanie. So you thought, Emma, thoughts about that, about the Cleganes and Arya?
Clegane Bowl looked really cool, but I just want Sandor to be happy on the Quiet Isle, but that's never going to happen. I did like the bit where Sandor was trying to get Arya to turn away from her sort of dark path, and that was nice, and then her trying to save people, but then that got sad. So
yeah,
I'm
gonna throw it to Stephen. I'm also gonna say, Emma, anytime now, I know it's almost 4 a.m. where you are, so anytime you want to go to bed, it's good. We will be in touch for sure, and obviously next week we'll see you on NOWIE pregame and postgame. Thank you for everything. Thank you always. So Stephen, yes, exactly, as Melon did. So Stephen, your thoughts about the Cleganes and Arya?
Okay, well, it was positivity. It was fun to watch. It was interesting. I thought the choreography was good. It was preceded by my favorite death of the episode. Qyburn's death was awesome. I thought it was so just, throw him down the stairs, break his head open, like the Mountain Dew. I didn't mean to make a Mountain Dew reference there. Anyway, I digress. And you're right. It does end in that sort of thematic, I don't know where the quote originates, but it goes something like, every journey of revenge should start by digging 2 graves. It's going to destroy you to go seek revenge. And it clearly did. And he knew that the whole time. And I couldn't agree with Emma more. Maybe the best part was right before that, where Sandor is convincing Arya, this is not the way that you want to go. And my last thought, I was the prettiest one on the stream until Emma showed up, and now Mel's here, and I just keep moving down the ladder. So,
Stephen, I'm gonna have to take issue with that. I don't know.
All right, we'll have a side by side. We'll let the ladies of our shared.
Stephen, you may be more handsome, but I'm prettier.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see about that.
No. I think even your picture on the screen is prettier than I am. So I was just kidding. Yeah. Okay, Melanie. Oh, let me just say about something Stephen said. Agreed about Qyburn. The only thing I want to say is two of the particular people I have hated the most in watching the show, and I'm talking about the show in particular, are Qyburn and Locke. Locke being the show character who takes Jaime's hand. And they died in very similar ways. And it was kind of quick in both cases. What happens to Locke is that Bran walks into Hodor and just kills him like that. Like, okay, Locke, oh, and it's over, and he's dead. And Qyburn, too, Qyburn does a lot of harm, directly and indirectly, the whole time he's around. And then the Mountain is just like, okay, you're dead. So yeah, could have stood to have it be, I don't know, savor it a little more. But then again, the whole point of all this is that you're not supposed to savor violence of any kind. So I understand, okay, even against the worst people. But I agree, I enjoyed that. I was happy that Qyburn died because, Qyburn is a serious evildoer. All right, Mel, take it away.
Melanie, we can't hear you.
Right, and it's not that Melanie is muted. We're having technical issues. Okay, Melanie, want to try again? Still not hearing you. Okay, we will wait. Okay, Melanie has dropped out and she'll come back in. Yeah, so I thought that the stuff with the Cleganes was interesting, was thematically valid, and oh, here's Melanie again. Want to try again?
Nope. Try a different browser. Sometimes people have had trouble using one browser and a different browser works better for them. I don't know if that will work for you or not.
Let's see. Oh yeah, so I thought the stuff with the Cleganes was thematic. Vengeance kills everyone, and the stuff with Arya turning away from it, being saved from it. It was good. That worked for me. I think it actually worked for me very well because Gregor, I had always wanted Gregor to be different from how he was. And because he showed so many glimmers of good, really from the beginning. But in the end, what they were saying about him, I think, was that he couldn't be different. He couldn't give us what we wanted. Hi, Sarah. But that was okay because Gregor used his bad experience to help Arya, to save Arya from becoming like him.
Sandor.
Yeah, Stephen?
Sandor, not Gregor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I meant Sandor. Yeah, Gregor is like a killing machine. So, Melanie, you want to try one more time? Okay, not working.
No.
So let's throw it to Sarah and see what Sarah thinks about anything.
First of all, bells to all of our hearts. Second of all, bells to everyone who passed away. Third of all, part of me was just like, can you even do this right now? Because, oh my flipping goodness, that was a absolute unequivocal roller coaster of emotions, regardless of how you felt at what I think is going to be one of the most debated moments when Dany takes flight. Just Woof, everyone. Absolute woof. That's my overarching statement about this episode.
It's too soon to make ghost jokes, just so you know.
Oh, hey, that's a good one. Wasn't even thinking about it.
Sarah, I that's just what we were saying at the very beginning of the stream, that we're so shocked about that moment with Danny. We talked about it, but we should talk about it more. Oh, to someone in the chat who was talking about Qyburn and Dr. Frankenstein, yeah, Emma and I have talked about that, and we see it exactly that way, that Qyburn is Dr. Frankenstein. That's an important parallel. And I think it's a very intentional parallel. Like, I literally think that that's the point. Although maybe even more evil. I have a Qyburn thing. So he's a very good doctor. What can you say? So yes, all right. So we've got. Trying to think of. So what do we think? Where do we think it goes from here? Danny's still alive and in charge now. Arya is very unhappy with her. And look, at Sansa and Arya were borne out, right? They said, "We don't trust your queen." In the last episode, I guess they were right. And now what happens with Jon and Arya and Danny? There's clearly going to be opposition to Danny, but I wonder what form that will take. Will it take the form of someone trying to murder her? Will it take the form of putting her on trial? Because we've thought that Danny's not going to, like, especially now. I can't think. I don't think that Danny is going to be around at the end. So how will she not be around at the end? Melanie, want to talk and see if we can hear you? Nope, still can't hear you. Okay. Anyone who wants to talk, say what you think about what happens to Danny in the finale. Oh, Melanie, I think we can hear you. Melanie, I think we can hear you.
Oh, wait. Oh my gosh, sorry. It's gonna be cool. I just had to connect my mic with no headphones. Apparently my headphones are not good right now.
Right, we can hear you perfectly. So,
okay, good.
Any thoughts about anything?
Yes. Okay. So I have thoughts about the Sandor Gregor scene and also thoughts about Qyburn. I'm just gonna pick up where you left off, where I had to get cut off. Okay, so I love the idea of Frank and Gregor and Qyburn being killed by the product of his own disgusting vivisection, bringing back to life thing. But I am on board with, like, I just wish it could have been a little bit more drawn out for Qyburn. And yes, there's the call, like there's definitely parallels between him and Locke, but it would have been a little bit more satisfying to me if it had been more drawn out, because I just really dislike Qyburn a lot, especially book Qyburn, but we're not talking about him. We're talking about show Qyburn, and show Qyburn is still a pretty awful dude. So I kind of wish it just hadn't come as a surprise to Qyburn. Like, I have like 1 second to think about the fact that I'm dying and now I'm dead. It would have been a lot more satisfying if only he had a more drawn out death. But what I do like about the scene is the idea that the Hound had to sacrifice himself. And it goes back to that whole self-sacrifice and forgiveness theme that I really like to talk about. There wasn't so much forgiveness in this scene, but there was definitely self-sacrifice on the part of the Hound. And I was really glad to see that. And it's really interesting because in the behind the scenes chat, a couple of us had called it, I'm really sorry, I can't remember exactly who had called it, but we all decided kind of collectively that Gregor was going to die at the Hound's hand, and it was probably going to be a case of Sandor pushing him off of some sort of cliff or parapet or embankment in order to kill him. And so I was really happy that that small prediction came true. That was like the one shining moment of prediction that came true. But yeah, so
great prediction. Was it a sky falling moon meteor inspired prediction?
Honestly, it wasn't.
Why did you think he was going to push him off a height?
Because I thought I think we all thought that was what it was going to take. We didn't think that that Gregor was going to die by normal means of like getting body parts cut off or stabbed or anything like that. We pretty much thought that it was going to take just like major dismemberment and being just shattered into pieces that was going to bring him down.
Yeah. Sarah, I see you taking notes, which I like. Notes are always encouraged. I'm taking them myself. So tell us what some of those notes are about, or anything you'd like to say.
So I'm a nerd or a geek, and I took about 9 pages of notes. Let me kind of piggyback on some of the Hound, Clegane, before we pivot to your question that you had posed about what's next for Danny, because I think that's where we're headed. So some of the quick thoughts that that came upon me as we were watching the Hound faced his worst and everlasting enemy is that I thought artistically it was gorgeously done, how we had these rapid, heart-wrenching cuts between the Hound and Arya. You could feel his pain through her and vice versa if you watch how they're reacting, as you watch as he slams into walls by a mountain. Yes. You can see her taking hits. And I thought that was beautiful. I thought that a callback to the Hound falling from a great height. At first, it was because he was doing something noble to protect Arya, and Brienne knocks him down, the noblest of knights, one would argue. We see that once again, him falling from a great height, yes, to protect Arya, yes, to seek his vengeance, but I think we're all a united 7 kingdoms across Westeros and Essos. We would argue that the mountain had to go and had to fall. So I thought that was beautiful. I don't know if anyone else in the ether had thought, oh, maybe Arya's coming, maybe we see them and it's now Arya's time, you know, maybe she can decapitate him. Where's Arya? And it just sinks further and further into me. She's too far away. It's too late for her. What's going to happen here? And I also found it just so beautiful and staggering that the Hound could laugh as he is getting closer and closer to the realization that I am going to die, but this thing, this former brother who I always knew was dead when he was born, dead when he was alive, dead as he is now, he is going down and I am going to be the one to take him. I thought that was fantastic. And, you know, I think often one of the things that we see in literature and shows and movies that we love most of all, we see in hindsight what becomes so obvious. Qyburn, one of the most intelligent people that we have gotten to see. Dude, of course your monster has the power to kill you. Why is your hubris so large that you can't see that Cersei can't see that? And it was just, I love watching Qyburn. And so I was torn in that instant moment where you see, you know what, you thought you had complete control, and like everyone else who sees it all too late, you don't. I thought that was stunning. So that was kind of my quick and dirty run through all of the thoughts that were flashing through my head regarding their battle, and the fact that the Hound is this surrogate father of death for Arya, and in the end reminds her, you are a beautiful warrior woman, but today you live, not today death. This one's mine. This is on me.
Sarah, I thought that was fantastic across the board. Fantastic. Really great. I agreed with everything. And I think you're right to call attention to the moment before the Hound Mountain fight, where Cersei and Qyburn expect the Mountain to defend Cersei. And the Mountain doesn't care about defending Cersei. And that, too, is highly thematic in this story, where it never works, right? Everyone wants to create these protectors / weapons. They want to turn people into weapons that are just going to be used however they want. And it never succeeds, you know. So like we actually talked about it earlier today, the Unsullied are created by the Masters. What ends up happening? They kill the Masters. The Night King has learned this lesson so well that he turns these people into people who are basically marionettes, right? Not going to take any chances. They're literally his puppets. They have no will of their own. The Unsullied were supposed to be like that, but they still turn. And indeed, the Night King himself turned on the Children of the Forest, who wanted to create this weapon for themselves to be used. So the mountain is this weapon, but he doesn't share the goals of the people who are using him as a weapon, and in the end, that's fatal to them. Qyburn, he literally kills, and Cersei, he won't protect. Okay, so let's see. Oh, there were a bunch of other... Oh, that's a very small point. Bells. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys remember this, but the Blackwater episode is my favorite episode of the series. And when Davos is coming toward city, King's Landing, his son, who's on the ship with him, says, they're ringing bells. That means they're surrendering. And Davos says, I've never known bells to mean surrender, which is true. They're not surrendering. So why on the show that told us that and never came back to that issue, are they suddenly say everyone understands bells mean surrender? Well, we covered this. I've never known bells to mean surrender. Those are his words. I was confused by that, but since I don't know if there's really a good answer for that, we just leave that there. Thoughts, Emma? What do you think is going to happen to Dany?
To Dany, I think we're now going to see a Jon Dany struggle. Sansa and Arya will back Jon for the throne. They'll try and get the Northmen to throw their weight behind Jon as in a bid for the throne. Jon will probably head north to take himself out of it as a thing, and that's why we got the sort of True North thing last episode. What that means for Dany, I don't know. Having seen what they've how her character has gone this episode, she is probably on the chopping block next episode.
I completely agree, and I think that Jon going north and Dany being on the chopping block could be connected. It might be that Jon executes Dany and then goes north, taking himself out of everything.
It could be like a weird Cregan Stark style thing, but where Cregan came down to take the handship, Jon comes down, takes the kingship, Dany is rebelling against him, she's committing treason, he executes her, leaves, the next person on the throne is Sansa.
But Dany is the one in power, it looks like, at the beginning of the next...
Well, I mean, if Jon's deciding that he wants to, like... I think we saw it in this episode. He's like, holy shit, like, this is fucking insane. This is really bad. I can't do this. Like, this was a line too far. These men had yielded. Like, we know that Jon respects yielding because that was like one of the first things he did on the show was protect Sam, who was yielding. And then, you know, when Alyssa was ignoring that, Jon stood up for it. So to see Dany burn hundreds of thousands of innocents, including yielding soldiers, that is without a doubt an atrocious war crime that Jon will not be able to sit back and watch. So I could feasibly see something where he's like, there has to be a mechanism to get rid of Dany, and the mechanism is he is the next in. He is the heir. He is the rightful king. Dany is not, if you go by the laws of succession. Everyone now knows this information. So Jon could feasibly claim the throne, some sort of internecine struggle, execute Dany as a traitor because she's sort of rebelling against the rightful king. And then he's like, right, peace out, I'm off, ciao.
Yeah, maybe. First of all, super smart callback to Jon protecting Sam, right? Sam yields. Jon, right from the beginning, respects the people who yield. You don't keep attacking them. Sir Alistair says, keep hitting him, and Jon won't let it happen. And here it is. The same thing happens here. Great point, Emma. Yeah, I don't think that the rationale is going to be, I mean, what do I know? But, it's going to be, Dany is, Jon Snow, I'm the lineal king, and so Dany's rebelling, and so she's committing treason. I think it's going to be more direct. I think it's going to be she committed this war crime, so it's not okay. But who knows, like, exactly what the mechanism will be, because the Grey Worm is still on her side. She still has the dragon, so probably someone would have to murder her, whether it's Arya or I don't know, maybe Jon would get the people to turn against her. It's an interesting question, how it will work. Stephen, what do you think?
Well, I've got a couple things I can say on that topic. But first of all, hi, Sarah. It's nice to meet you. My prettiness stock keeps dropping. But I said out loud during the episode, Daenerys and her soldiers have committed war crimes. And to be fair, I think we saw Northmen doing the same. I think we saw pretty much everybody who showed up to take the city, sack the city like you expect to see. And the aftermath of the dragon attack reminded me of, like, Hiroshima. It was horrifying, burned bodies everywhere. Nobody was spared. Ash and dust and destruction everywhere. I don't know if anybody read that book, has read the book Hiroshima. I had to read it in high school, and it's haunting and it's harrowing, and I thought it was, that angle of the episode was so well done. Miguel Sapochnik is second to none in Game of Thrones for bringing the action to life in a real, visceral, terrifying way. And he did it time and time again this episode, although I think maybe we had one too many Arya death fake outs. But I actually think this episode, we're all going to take a long time to process this, but the Daenerys turning point is probably going to be maybe the most divisive thing this fandom has ever seen. I just, sitting here thinking about it, there's no other words, so pardon me, but I just fucking hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I expected better from her. I thought they were writing her to be better than that. I just don't understand the turn. I just don't understand it. So there's a lot to like in this episode, but this Daenerys, I mean, is that the third big twist that George is talking about? Did we just see it? Is this?
I sure hope not.
Is this something we should be preparing for when the books come out?
Oh, brother, that's, if this is maybe this is the third big twist. That is possible. I'm really glad you bring that up, Stephen. So for the viewers, if you don't know what Stephen's referring to, Benioff and Weiss said that at the beginning, George R. R. Martin told them about 3 big surprises. One was Hodor, one was Shireen, and one was something at the end. But although they said it was at the very end, I don't know if this counts as the very end.
Pretty close.
It sure is pretty close, and this might be it. And God, if this is I thought that Hodor and Shireen, as sad and moving as Hodor was, and as horrifying as Shireen was, I thought that they were artistically really kind of gripping and well thought out. This, I don't know. I hope this isn't the thing. But I saw Melanie's hand up. Melanie, tell us what you think.
All right, so take this with a grain of salt. I'm going to sit here and sip my Cersei wine, and I never thought I would be doing this. But okay, my take on the show is it's a television spectacle. Like it or not, us that love the book so dearly, sometimes we just have to let that go and let the show be the show. And the show is a television spectacle, and they understand that most of their viewership are not dedicated book readers like we are, and they're not going to understand callbacks to Cregan Stark, and they're not going to understand all of these real technical, complicated things that a lot of us understand. and they're going to simplify things much more than any of us are going to be happy with. And that being said, I saw some things in the episode that kind of cued me into setting up Arya as the person to kill Dany. Specifically towards the end, there was a moment that was kind of a throwback to Davos's moment where he saw Shireen's burnt or little deer, the little deer figure that he had carved for Shireen, and he saw it burnt and how that hurt him in his heart. And I don't know if you noticed, but at one moment towards the end, Arya saw a little girl that was burnt with a figure of like a horse, like a carved horse. And for me,
I thought maybe it was a wolf, or was I wrong? Maybe I'm wrong.
I thought it was a horse. Who knows? I'd have to go back and look at it.
It was that same little girl she was trying to save from earlier, and it was a little wooden horse.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
They showed her carrying it earlier in the episode.
Oh, great job, you guys.
Thank you. Yay, Steven, you're there for us. I was just like, So I think what we're going to see is we saw Arya's character find her fear during the Battle of Winterfell. She found her fear. She became more human. I don't really love the way that they rehumanized her, but that's neither here nor there. She's now human. She has fear. She understands now the horrors of war. She's wandering throughout this Hiroshima-type post-nuclear King's Landing that is like the scouring of the Shire. And what she sees in that moment is a child that died, and it just like hits her in an emotional way, I think. And I think we're, as the viewers, supposed to see that as a turning point for Arya, where, okay, she's almost died several times. She's seeing all these horrors of war, and now she wants to end it. And the only way to end it is to end Dany and her weapons of mass destruction, to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And like, it sounds so simple, but I'm afraid that that's the way the show is going to go. Very simple.
Yeah, I think you just helped me clarify a thought. That's why I hate it, because I don't want to be rooting against Daenerys. She has been one of my favorite characters throughout the whole series. You know?
Oh my gosh, I want her to be the tragic hero. I don't want her to be the Mad Queen. Like, gosh, darn it all. Ugh.
Yeah, and I'd like to say that it's not Emma's worst fears come true about madness, but it is, because did you see the scenes from before the episode? They were talking about Targaryens flipping a coin. The previously on Game of Thrones scenes. So they're attributing this to madness, or to wanting to inspire fear. But I think madness is a lot of it. I think that's that's what they're saying, and that's really.
But why do the bells cause madness? I don't understand.
Well, no, I mean, it sounds like if it's just that, that's silly. Even I am going to say that's silly. If it's that the bell, all this time we're very lucky Dany never was around bells, because if she had been, she would have just burned everybody. I think that if you want to do this to Dany, and I'm with Stephen, I've been pro Dany all the way. I don't think they need to do it to Dany, and not in this way either. But but if you want to do it to Dany, give her more of a reason. They tried, and okay. To be fair to them, maybe the story is she gradually lost all the people close to her, and that's very, very hard. She's all alone. Jorah is gone. Missandei is gone. Earlier, Barristan Selmy is gone, and Jon basically is gone. More or less, he won't work together with her completely the way she wants him to, or be together with her the way she wants him to. So she loses everyone, and maybe isolation can be a very difficult thing, along with all that she's gone through. But that said, I don't know. I just didn't see it going this way. I guess they did set it up with the killing of the Tarleys, but that was different. I don't know. This was not what I thought. Sarah.
Okay. Let me help you all with the counter argument. But first, I want to note a point about Hodor. Was the fact that Hodor held the real switch, or the fact that it was Bran in Hodor's body, watching his own body flee to safety. I would argue that the real switch is the fact that Bran can take over a human. Anyway, here's the counter argument to what will inevitably be a PR nightmare for Dany. She has seen time and time again Tyrion's advice fail her. She has very good reason to believe, based on Tyrion's own actions, Tyrion's own admissions, that, and I even whispered to my husband, holy bleep, are the bells a trap? So just like, let's take a step back and put ourselves in the position of someone who has literally fought and has been victimized and rises up literally and figuratively from the ashes her entire life, just because small folk want mercy does not mean that the enemy in charge here, Cersei, is going to give it. And Cersei has made it abundantly clear each time Dany has tried to treat with her, really, it's a bleeping lie. Dany tried at King's Landing in the Dragon Keep, and what was she later told after trusting Tyrion? From Jaime's own mouth, nope, Cersei doesn't mean it. So even if she hears from Tyrion, if the bells are rung, that means she's surrendered. What has past experience taught her about, first of all, Cersei, and what happens when you follow Tyrion's advice as to Cersei?
Objection, Your Honor.
That's okay. Hold on. And further, I would say I was aghast at the fact that she started like way at where the Scorpions were. Like, girl, go straight to King's Landing. So tactically speaking, again, I've never been a general. I've never wielded a dragon before. Would I have made different decisions? Maybe. I don't think I'd wield that sort of power, but I can understand how anyone absolutely in the wallows of catatonic loss and catatonic deception would have engaged in the behaviors that she did. That doesn't mean that I agree with them, but I think if we wholesale call her the Mad Queen, we're doing a disservice to what she's actually learned and what she's actually gone through. I find it poetically tragic that Cersei ended up not using the wildfire, that ended up blowing up and hurting people and adding to the dragon fire. I thought that was incredibly poetic. And it breaks my heart that Dany truly has become the Queen of Ashes. But that's my hot take. So take the objection and run with it.
Okay. You somewhat even made my point for me. Daenerys, I actually think it was tactically a good idea for her to take out the Scorpions first. We talked about that at the very beginning of the stream. But after the bells are rung, if she still wants to go after Cersei, go after Cersei. There is no reason for her to attack the city at large. And it does nothing to endear her to the people she intends to rule. I think it's, again, it's down to that, like, she's gone mad for whatever reason, and I just don't, at the risk of mansplaining to three very smart women, Daenerys is sort of a feminist icon. I love her for that, you know, she fights for her agency and tries to find a better way. And I think they have severely damaged the legacy of a truly iconic character with this writing move. And I don't like that at all. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You know, so first of all, I think that I think we all agree with you, Stephen, that this is that Daenerys is a great character. I'm grateful, Sarah, very grateful for your point. And I hope you're right. And whether or not you are, I'm very glad you made the point. I think it should have been made. It needed to be made that Daenerys had reason to doubt that the bells meant anything, you know, that I too thought early in the episode that the bells were a trick, were going to be a trick. But on the other hand, I think that the writers of the episode, if I had to guess, and it's a guess, but if I had to guess, I don't think they mean for us to believe that Daenerys thought it was a trick. I think they mean for us to believe that Daenerys understood that the bells meant surrender and wanted to burn them all anyway. Why? Half madness, half wanting to inspire fear. Now, I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong and you're right about that, which I hope, I would much rather you be right about that than me, that'd be great. Then, you know, because at least there's a reason, and it is understandable because, as you say, Cersei has broken her word before in huge ways. So, okay, but as Stephen says, the problem is she's burning random civilians, right? And you could see it, as far as I could tell. These people are running for their lives. They're carrying like baskets of, you know, they're not carrying weapons. Plus, she could probably even see that the Lannister soldiers had literally thrown down their weapons. So she's just killing helpless people, and many of them aren't even soldiers. That's, even if you think it's a trick, that's not how you handle the fact that it's a trick. You don't just kill everybody in the city. It's a Tywin, right? I mean, are we all on the same page with this, right? Is that not, Emma, this is Tywin, right, taking King's Landing after Robert's Rebellion.
But who's a bomb bleep ruler? Tywin. It's like, it's the blessed curse. And trust me when I say I don't like it. I don't like the justification. We'll leave the mercy for the future generations. That's some twisted, pun intended, gaslighting there by Dany. But there is an argument that while we loathe Tywin's methods, man, were people fed? Was the economy booming?
Oh, no. I don't know.
So, I mean, I don't like it. I do not like it, but that doesn't mean in the most brutal sense, in at least this D&D world, that kind of disgusting form of peacemaking, and I put that in huge dragon wing quotes there, doesn't mean it isn't effective. To lose one city for 7 entire kingdoms, it's the age-old philosophical question: how much is a single life worth?
Emma, I have a response to this, but since you and I have the same brain, I'm going to let you make the response.
So my response was going to be like, it's a peace, but it's only a peace because everyone's dead. You can't, like, now that there's no Night King, then when people are dead, then they stay dead, and that's not peace anymore. That's just a wasteland of corpses. And that's what Tywin's strategy was, just make a wasteland of corpses. And that need for devastation and personal vengeance is what destroyed him and destroyed his family, and has not led to lasting peace. Yeah, it was fine whilst he was in charge. What happens after? Like, you have to set up the future, and Dany is not doing that, and Tywin did not do that, and it is no peace if there is no security for future generations, in my opinion. And with that, I am going to go to bed because it's now 4:30 and I've got work.
Yes, that was wonderful. That was a perfect.
Good night, Emma.
Emma, fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, that was, as usual, that's a better version of what I was going to say. I think that, but as Emma said, really, a big core theme is you want lasting peace and justice to be built on a foundation of good. The ancient mistake was probably the idea that everything would work out as long as, you know, just the right person was in power. And of course, the person himself thought that he was the right person. And it doesn't work that way. You've got to build it on a foundation of something just and something good. And so Tywin didn't achieve his utilitarian goals. You know, he built House Lannister on this foundation of we'll just kill everybody else. But ultimately, House Lannister died. Because if everybody wants to kill you because that's who you are, eventually you fail. Everyone wanted to kill Ramsay. Everyone wanted to kill Cersei. And, you know, Tywin dies on the toilet, which is the statement that this is a bad way to be. And now that I think about it, I think that that's probably why Locke and Qyburn got the deaths that they got, because I think the statement that's being made is these people don't deserve even a long, interesting, satisfying death to these, even if that may be an oxymoron, but, you know, they don't deserve. These people are just garbage, basically, and they deserve to be, for their deaths to reflect that. So, okay, but that said, I'm still glad you said what you said, Sarah, although Tywin, you know, all you have to know about Tywin is what he does to Tysha, Tyrion's first wife. If viewers, you don't know what I'm talking about, you're freaking lucky. Don't look it up. Okay, so yeah. Well, what about the Valonqar? What about the Valonqar? Thoughts about that, Melanie?
Okay, can I just like throw in one last thought about Dany? And this is in reference to the burning of King's Landing as a scouring of the Shire. That is kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth if we're looking at it that way, because we have Dany as this feminist icon, and you know all the weight that carries for all of us women who have personally invested in Dany as a character. And the scouring of the Shire, looking at King's Landing in that way, sets Dany up as the Mad Queen and as an antagonist, and that's really kind of hurtful, like on a weirdly personal level to me. And I just want to throw that out there. So the Valonqar, oh, like I'm so disappointed in that. And I hate to be a downer right now, but the fact that Jaime, okay, so last episode, I totally thought that Jaime was faking out Brienne and was going to King's Landing to maybe not murder Cersei, but maybe to rescue her and have a situation where it was Jaime and Cersei against the world, the way that Jaime, well, they kind of always wanted it, and probably not having a good outcome. But their death was kind of inconclusive. And I mean, because like it was not technically shown on the screen, and kind of anticlimactic for me. I just felt like all this work that they've put into building Jaime's arc as a redemptive, arc just kind of fell flat. And I'm trying to find something nice to say about this, but I'm not having much luck right now.
It is an interesting point. You know, I think that on the one hand, the death was foreshadowed a lot, the way that it went. So first of all, Jaime says to Bronn famously, die in the arms of the woman that he loves. So he dies in Cersei's arms. Second, the death tracks very closely the poem about Old Valyria that Jorah and Tyrion recite, where it's two people and they don't look upon the end, right? The world is exploding around them, just like King's Landing is. I mean, it's really the same thing. It's very clearly identical imagery. And you have this couple that holds each other and basically won't look back on the destruction around them. They die without acknowledging it, really. And that's basically exactly what happens to Cersei and Jaime. And it was even foreshadowed by Lady Crane, who plays Cersei in the play in Bravos, tells Arya that she used to go and she loved to watch the plays when the lovers would die in each other's arms. So we've been waiting for this to happen, and here it happens. But it is true that it's interesting what we end up making of Jaime, you know. And also, by the way, Euron. It was interesting, Euron's death as well. I mean, they had certainly set up Euron fighting Jaime, so that literally happened. But I don't know. Euron ends up dying saying, "I killed Jaime Lannister," and that's his credential, and he's happy in death. It was a little weird to me. I thought of Euron differently from that, or at least as more.
Was it like just there to prove how delusional Euron was supposedly. Like,
I like that.
I don't know.
I like that. Yeah. And interesting, the I killed Jaime Lannister, you wonder whether maybe there's also an emotional component to that, right? Because he tells Jaime that he slept with Cersei. And so maybe does that kill Jaime emotionally? I had thought that Jaime would take one last turn for the good, which I thought maybe would be killing Cersei or something. It wasn't. He doesn't really take a last turn for the good, does he? Or does he? What do we think of Jaime at the end? Stephen, thoughts about that? And then Sarah?
Thoughts about Jaime. I was on the F Jaime train last week. You know, nobody speaks to my Brienne that way. And you know, I get it. It's his sister. They've known each other their whole lives, and as gross as it is, there is a genuine love there. You know, I don't think any of us can deny Jaime loves Cersei, as maybe wrong as we all think that is. As I think we can all agree that that's true. I just don't even know what to think with this episode, y'all. I'm still processing. I'm still stuck on Daenerys, and you know, But okay.
But let me throw it to Sarah for a second for thoughts on the on Jaime and his arc and how it ends up for him, and whether what do we think of him at the end?
I think he is a heart in conflict with itself. He knows who he truly is, but he resists it because of who he truly loves. And there's a lot that I will say on this YouTube chat, because I think what's important here is for us to look at both what is logically the most apparent, which might be disagreements with what we had as the approach and what we'd like to have as an approach, but watching them together in what they clearly know to be the last moments of their lives, as they are two, almost three scared lion cubs reverting back to their purest form of love, trapped in a lion's cave filled with the dead of dragon skulls, their only glimmer of hope given to them by Cersei's nightmare, her youngest monstrous of brothers. I sobbed, y'all. Like, I sobbed for two of the most flawed, disgusting people who I rooted against and rooted to have on that screen so that I could be on the edge of my seat. I really desperately, from an imagery perspective, wanted actually in some ways for them to have died. And good point, Melanie. You know what? Like, as far as I'm concerned, they're dead, but thanks, Game of Thrones, you never know until you actually see it. Did we see it? Yes, no, I don't know, yeah. But I found it deeply unsettling and tragically beautiful as Cersei is scuttling across, trying to escape, as literally the world cracks in half. This world that she painted in what she thought to be her most impregnable fortress of solitude, for them to find one another in the last moments of hope, to share that one beautiful, precious moment, literally on the world together. It's saying to me, and that doesn't mean that I necessarily agree with how it was executed, but folks, this is show canon, canon, not canon. And because there's going to inevitably be some fallout, let's find those hidden gems of human vulnerability that we can love. And that's what I want to nurture.
Totally. And, I think that there's a lot that was thematic about their death. Again, it was similar to, in the poem, it was similar to what we've heard a lot about dying in your lover's arms. it's interesting about the Valonqar because, and I guess the show doesn't need to care about the Valonqar because it's not in the show. So maybe they just, if you want to believe it's fulfilled, I don't know who's the killer. Is it? It's not really Jamie, probably. I guess it would have to be Danny, who is a younger sibling. We talked about that in the pregame, whether that counts or not. Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you make a lot of good points, Sarah. And I thought that scene was very interesting. And, maybe it's okay that, because what Jamie says to her, if I recall correctly, is that we're the only people in the world.
Exactly.
Right?
And I know I talked about this a lot, so I apologize for the airtime, but for one of the first times, or at least certainly in a very long time, we see Cersei remove the mask. And what's the first thing we hear from her? You're hurt. You're bleeding. It's finally her reflecting on what this devastation has done to someone that she loves. We know, and we've known, she and largely Jamie, as he says, we don't care about King's Landing people. We care about ourselves. We are Lannisters. We roar. And to see Cersei recognize another's pain and that cause her pain, that was beautiful.
I love it, Sarah. Great job. You're so right. You're so right. And I think we needed that. I think it was good. No one is going to forget, who's viewing this show, what Cersei Lannister is all about. What she has done. But she's a very important character, and it's valuable to be reminded of her humanity. And we are. They really do that. They really make us feel whatever humanity is there, right? You're hurt, you're bleeding is perfect. And thank you, Sarah, for remembering that. That's right. Finally, Cersei lets down her guard. She tries not to. She tries to, just deny reality all the way to the end. But finally, she's confronted with the truth, right? Qyburn dies. Gregor doesn't care about her anymore. She's literally all alone. And then there's Jamie, and she cares about him. And then also she has a very incredibly human fear of death for her and her baby. And she basically says, I'm afraid to die. And who wouldn't be, and I think we're allowed to feel something for her in spite of all of the evil that she's wrought. But I want to also make a point that I was reminded of Janos Slint. Janos Slint is the guy who betrayed Ned Stark. He was the head of the Gold Cloaks. He was paid off by Littlefinger, and then he ends up getting sent by Tyrion to the Wall. And when he's at the Wall with Jon Snow, under Jon Snow, he's buddies with Alliser Thorne, these two guys who are horrible. And Janos Slint is up atop the wall with Jon, and they're looking out on Mance Rayder's army coming and these giants coming, and clearly they're finished. They're going to lose. They managed to get through that night, but there's no chance. And Janos Slint is saying things like, there's no such thing as giants, 4 inches of cold rolled steel, they'll never get through the wall. And everyone's looking at him like, you're insane. Like, you're denying reality. Reality is staring you in the face and you can't accept it. And that's what went through my mind when I see Cersei saying, the Red Keep is the safest place there is. The Golden Company, our soldiers will fight them off. It's like, oh my God, at some point reality brings itself to bear on you no matter who you are. Melanie, what do you think?
I'm really sorry, John. I've been looking at the chat and I've been distracted by
Tell us, is there
a tangent
you should talk about?
Yeah, so going completely off the rails here, what do you think Davos's favor to Tyrion was? Do you think it was Davos getting the boat ready to smuggle Jamie and Cersei out of King's Landing? Or do you think it was something else?
Great question. I think you answered it. I think it was probably that. It was probably getting the boat ready. Because I think they're telling us that it's the same spot where Davos smuggled Gendry into and out of King's Landing.
Yeah.
I mean, if nothing else, the spot where he leaves with Gendry and Tyrion late in the show, late in the series, when he's sneaking in to have this, what Bronn sets up a talk with Jamie, and Davos goes and gets Gendry too, and So that looked like the same place to me. I think.
Wouldn't it be weird if that was also the place that Sansa escaped to? Although she came down the outside of the cliff.
Oh, I like it. That's I think I've wondered that before.
Mm.
I think maybe it felt like a different one when I looked one time, but I could be wrong. Maybe it is the same place. Yeah,
it'd be weird if it was.
That definitely gets repeated. And then there's also, I guess, when Davos saves Gendry from Stannis, that's at Dragonstone, so that's a totally different thing. But the Sansa thing, you're right, could be the same. Okay, so that's a good point from the chat. I noticed also you mentioned, Mel, internally that this idea of the once for gold, once for blood, once for love, right? So this is a famous thing from the books, 3 treasons you will know, said to Dany. One for gold, one for blood, one for love. Mm-hmm. So some people think that Miri Mazdur, the witch, betrays her for blood. Who knows? Some people thought that Jorah betrayed her for gold originally when Jorah was trying to get his pardon. And everyone wondered, what's the once for love? You could say it was Varys for love of the realm. Maybe Jon is still going to betray her. That seems like a pretty likely one.
I think it was Tyrion's love of his brother.
I totally, okay. So like, as I was watching that scene, I was like, hold up. This could go one of 3 ways. And yeah, you guys already said it. I don't really have any more to add, but I was just like, wait, what's going on here? There's like 3 different loves that are going on. There's Tyrion's love for his family, like you said. There's Varys's love for the realm. And there's Jon's love for his family. So yeah, like, it could go either way. The split between Jon and his love for Dany and his family, I guess it should have been a little bit more specific there.
Yeah, that is interesting. It's so interesting that even Tyrion, in a way, Tyrion and Cersei both get abandoned by everyone. Dany is in the process of it because she's going to be abandoned by Jon. She's felt that she was abandoned by Jon. And even Grey Worm, the one person who sticks with Dany, is sort of really, it's a little bit like the Mountain, right? The Mountain isn't really with Cersei. He's against Gregor. He just wants to kill, and he wants to kill his brother. And Grey Worm wants to kill everyone for what happened to Missandei. Even he is more loyal to that vengeance mission, I think, now than he is to Dany. Stephen, we haven't heard from you in a while. Your thoughts on any of this?
Okay. I've processed Jamie a little bit. I was thinking about it. They do get that sort of romantic ending, and we see that in a lot of widespread media. And you can say she died in her brother's arms. They came into the world together. They went out of the world together. I do like the sort of parallel of their story there. I'm going to shift gears a little bit, because something that I noticed, especially in this episode, is that Ramin Djawadi is a genius. He told me the city was going to burn long before it happened, because when Arya and the Hound were trying to sneak into King's Landing, there were overtones of Light of the Seven playing, and I was like, you know, if you pay attention to the music, it always tells you what's going on. And one of the things I've really, because I want to talk about what I like. We've had a lot of like disappointment talk. So the sort of visceral nature of what was happening on the ground in King's Landing was fantastic. I don't want to say it's all style, no substance, because actually I think a lot of the episode has a lot of substance. Just the shock factor of the big twist in the middle, it has us all reeling so much that it's difficult to process any of it fully. But it was beautiful. Again, the sound design this season has been next level. And I'm a guy, I love cinema as an art form, the visual medium, the auditory medium, and the music and the sound design and the visual effects and the acting. They're all actually really, really, really good with this show.
I'm really glad you brought that up, Stephen. I think that that's really true, and I think it's something the show has been great about from the beginning to the end. I agree, by the way, about all of those things. The acting, obviously, really good all across the board, and it's critical. But one of the things specifically is that they do a great job of personalizing battle episodes, which is crucial because it's just, even when it's a spectacle that's a kind of amazing spectacle, it gets old really fast if you don't personalize it. If you just see the big stuff, then it's like, I don't know, I don't really care. But I mean, I care a little, but not for long. But what makes me care for long is seeing the people in the streets. And they really try to show this from all sides. They show it from both sides of the battle. They show soldiers on both sides. They show people who are bystanders. They show the people, the rulers and their advisors and everything. They really try to show it all. And you feel like you're there, you know, and that's a fantastic achievement, to feel this, that something that's huge that's happening in the world is happening, and you're a small person just in the street seeing the sky fall, you know, seeing the city burn and feeling the potential for your own imminent death. It's terrifying, which was thematically crucial for them to bring that home, and they do bring it home. And that was really a success, I thought, of this episode, and a success of Benioff and Weiss and Game of Thrones really all the way. It was hugely successful in the Blackwater episode 6 years ago, and it was hugely successful here too. Melanie, do you have thoughts about that?
You caught me interacting with the chat again, John.
It's okay. It's okay. No, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, that everyone got the airtime that they want to have.
Fact check: Battle of Blackwater was 7 years ago.
Well, it depends, right? So we're in the 8th season. It was in the 2nd season. So you could view it as 6 years in like show world, or you could view it as 7 years in the real world, because there were 2 years effectively between seasons 7 and 8. So I never know what to say in that situation. But you're right, Stephen. It was 7 years ago.
I just got lawyered.
No, you're absolutely right. I never know what to say, and I didn't want to sound like I was overstating the case, so I went with the one that was more conservative. But you're right. It's hard to. I mean, it could be either one. So,
oh man, I'm sorry. That was funny to me. I'm muted because I'm laughing out loud.
Let's see. Well, I mean, we're all here on this broadcast because we follow this pretty closely. So, you know, if anyone's going to know the details, it should be us.
Let me add one point to piggyback off of Stevens before we pivot. This may be the first time in a long time, folks, that we had the cinematic gift of not just one epic battle, but 2 epic battles in a single series, in a single season. Jason Concepcion of Binge Mode brought that up. There has been a precedent set by this cast, by the musicians, by the costuming. Whoever said the phrase, I don't know when we'll get to see their like again. And I really anticipate, I don't know how it's going to go down. Maybe some unsatisfactory thing where Drogo and Dany fly away off to a shy, hark back to your Targaryen roots. But there's a likelihood that we see at least one more battle of some sort because of the conflict that it inevitably exists. And to kind of circle back to where we were at the beginning, yes, Dany's in power, but in power of whom? Really, the only ones that we can be sure of, and again, after the show and we have a chance to process, she's in charge of the Unsullied. Okay, that's the same. That's the same as, Essos. She's in charge of the Dothraki. Okay, that's the same as Essos. She's got King's Landing, sort of. It's worse than Harrenhal. And then she's got Dragonstone, that now that the long night has ended has really no economic feasibility. So unless and until she continues that carnage, and unless and until she does some real PR, recouping with John, who is not going to approve of what's going down, who truly holds the power right now? Besides fear, I don't think it's her.
Well, I think that there's part of this. We don't even have to really figure it out because there's one episode left. So it's not going to be, if there were years left, that could be a big question. I think it won't be. It'll be resolved by a much more specific thing, maybe her being killed or something. And that I'm ready to talk about, and I'm excited to. But I do think that she probably could hold power if there weren't one episode left, and if I weren't convinced that she's not going to rule at the end. I think that just sort of as a practical, logistical matter, she probably could hold power out of fear. Her ancestor Aegon, it was a pretty similar situation. Now, true, he came with 3 dragons, each with a rider. She only has 1, but he was facing fresh armies, and no, I think everybody's ready to just give up. It's just like, okay, we saw what happens with the dragon. Let's just give up. He had like 5,000 troops or something initially, I think, but then the dragons just wipe everyone out at the Field of Fire. The Lannister army, Aegon the First, the Conqueror, and everyone gives up. The Starks are like, we kneel. Torrhen Stark, the king who knelt, we give up. And I think everyone's ready to give up. So I think she could probably rule, but that won't happen. Now, it's interesting. So what's the mechanism by which she gets defeated? She's got a dragon. This guy, your host, your humble host, one of his many incorrect predictions coming into this season was that the reason that Arya's shooting arrows all the time from one of her very first scenes in the first episode, all through, we see it in season 3, we see it in season 6, it gets emphasized in season 7, and now it's getting emphasized in season 8. I mean, heck, she nearly takes Gendry's head off with an arrow when he's coming to propose to her. Why is she shooting arrows a million times? And I said before the season that maybe Arya will kill Viserion. She'll hit Viserion in the eye with a dragonglass-tipped arrow, because killing a dragon, one of the only ways to do it is in the eye. Now all the scorpions are gone. You can't hit it with a scorpion, but you could hit it with an arrow in the eye. That can kill a dragon. Now, who knows whether the show believes it can kill a dragon, but maybe my incorrect prediction still lives, because somebody's got to kill Drogon, probably, or at least separate Dany from Drogon. If Dany's going to be killed, Drogon would appear to be a literally gigantic obstacle to that.
Is that Bronn's music I just heard? Where was my boy at?
Oh, you're right. But Bronn doesn't have an incentive to kill Dany.
Who knows his debts? Tyrion does. Which Lannister is left alive to pay for them? Tyrion is. And Tyrion
is the hand of the queen, right? Then if
he is, except when Dany said, "You betray me again, you're going down."
You're right, and he did betray her again with Jacob. He did betray her again.
So I happen to agree with.
We don't. I'm excited. Sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
I have not agreed with 100% of everything you said, but man, am I on board with this? I actually think that's brilliant, low key, brilliant.
You think Bronn kills the dragon? Actually, that's very plausible when you think.
Or the Dragon Queen.
Well, the Dragon Queen, maybe, but the Dragon Queen would be a big kill. That you feel like should be something very important, someone maybe more consequential. But Bronn has this history with dragons, right? Bronn is the one who brings down the dragon out of the sky. And also, for those of us who like symbolism, Bronn's work at the Blackwater was very symbolic of bringing down dragons, where he's the one who fires this arrow, this flaming arrow, and it blows everything up. Well, I mean, blowing everything up is how the dragons die at the Doom of Valyria, and probably in ancient times as well with moon meteors. So, at least I think so. So, Bronn is like Mr. Kill the Dragon. So maybe low-key brilliant is right, Stephen. And I'm going to say, now that you guys have talked about it, not even low-key, like Sarah, if you get that right, whoa, we got to write that down. Sarah, you're going to have to come, and next week you're going to have to like take a huge bow.
I like being surprised, but I'll add this additional tidbit. If only there was some kind of foreshadowing of Dany being warned about a lone man on the King's Road that could possibly take her, not her dragon, take her out. If only we had that to go on.
You're saying, so what Sarah's referring to is Jorah saying to Dany, maybe you should fly to Winterfell, not ride, because, you know, all it takes is one person on the King's Road, one man who's angry and, you know, takes you out with a bolt, right? So from there. But here, Sarah, now you're talking about Bronn killing Dany. Don't you think that Bronn killing the dragon, if he's going to kill one of them, that the dragon would be more likely? Even the dragon is a big ask, but he does have this history with dragons that would work. But killing Dany, to me, seems like it's got to be someone ultra important. Yes, no.
Pipe in for a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
As much of a, so I really like your point, John, about the feeling for the need to have it be somebody important who takes Dany down. But I think one of the points that George is trying to make in his work overall is about, and I hate to use the phrase, the banality of evil, and how sometimes it's the small player that ends up doing something that has really huge consequences. And so, as weird as it would be, you know, I do kind of feel that need for it to be somebody important that would take Dany down. At the same time, I can see, like, I can make space in my head for it being somebody like Bronn, who literally is just, like, motivated by greed. Like,
Yeah,
that's the long and short of it. He just wants his castles. He just wants his ladies. He just wants to die happy.
Who killed King Harold Godwinson of England? Some random longbowman.
Yep. And I think we're also forgetting the instances in which Bronn's tenacity as a sellsword has created pivotal ripple effects since the very beginning.
Yeah,
what
would
Tyrion be without Tyrion? And but for Bronn, Tyrion would have learned how to fly, and I don't mean in a good way.
Right. What she means is that Tyrion would have been thrown out the moon door by, on the order of Lysa Arryn after she found him guilty in a show trial of I guess, what was it? Oh, trying to kill Bran Stark. Of course, Tyrion didn't do that. But it didn't happen because Bronn won the trial by battle as Tyrion's champion against Lysa Arryn's champion, Vardis Egan. So interesting. Okay, yeah, I like it. And Stephen, I love the historical reference. Oh, yes, Sarah?
All I'm saying is we'll see, and I can't flip and wait. That's all I know for sure.
So Sarah says that, which do you think he'll kill, Dany the dragon or both?
I'll say this. I'll punt because my reputation will not be built or fall on getting something like that right. I'm more excited about dissecting and reveling in the possibility, the symbolism, the narrative arcs, whether or not that's the slam dunk way to go down. In some ways, like, surprise me. Don't let it be Bronn. Maybe Bronn brings down Drogon, or Drogon gets upset when Dany's falling. I don't know. Make me a spectacle and then Arya's the kill blow. I just don't know. But the idea of Arya having so many kills, that's one of the reasons why it made sense for me. And I thought it was really beautiful. Arya chose not to kill Cersei. And in some ways, like, women power, like, let's do this, girl, like, slay all day. Does that make me a bad person? But she was not the one to kill Cersei. So why? I love the idea of us going back to the bow staff, but I don't know.
I think that it's interesting because if they want to have Arya kill, say, the dragon or Dany, the idea could be that Arya killing Cersei was going to be purely about vengeance, especially the way they set it up in this episode, which I do give them credit for, right? They didn't, we thought ahead of time that what would have made more sense for everyone is if Dany had just basically sent Arya to go assassinate Cersei, and then you could have taken the throne without this massive bloodshed. Obviously, that's not how it went. By the time that Arya was considering killing Cersei, there was no reason. There was no value to anyone else. The Hound says that to her. She's dead already, right? The dragon's going to eat her. It's a shout out to what happened to Rhaenyra, and or it'll fall down on her. You know, she's finished. The Unsullied are here. She's going to die for sure. And Arya says, "I want to kill her," right? So Arya isn't saying that she wants to kill Cersei for the greater good. She's saying she wants to kill Cersei for herself, for vengeance. And that's when the Hound says, no, that's not the way to live. You don't want to be like me. So whereas Arya rejects killing Cersei for vengeance, she might kill Drogon and or Dany, not for vengeance, but for the greater good. And maybe that, you know, that's different potentially. So it's interesting. If she does fire an arrow finally and have it kill Drogon, that would be interesting. That would it's possible that would be compatible with her arc.
I would be very compelled. I think we have to see, based on the foreshadow, Arya wielding her bow and arrow against someone. I'm compelled by my mulling over how Grey Worm looked at Jon when Jon said no. And I was very concerned Grey Worm was going to start attacking Jon. And I think Grey Worm would beat Jon. Arya will see that, know that, and save Jon by possibly killing Grey Worm. You know, I don't know.
That's interesting. I don't think that anyone would beat Jon. Maybe Arya, but I think to me, the arc that we've been taken on with Jon is that Ramsay Bolton calls him the greatest swordsman who's ever walked the earth. I think Jon, you know, starts out fighting these straw men, literally, in the Winterfell courtyard in the first episode, then untrained Night's Watch recruits, and then up, Qhorin Halfhand who's trying to lose, and then eventually he's fighting Carl Tanner, one of the best killers there is, and then he's fighting a Thenn, and then he's fighting White Walkers, and the last time he fights a White Walker, he kind of makes short work of it. He's just whoosh. And so I think that Jon is basically like this superhuman force of nature now.
Counter, Jon needed help to kill a Thenn. Shouts to Ollie, my dude. And he also needed Craster's wife's help to kill the mass murderer in Craster's Keep.
No doubt about Carl Tanner. Yeah. Carl Tanner, he loses the fight, and that's the mass murderer in Craster's Keep. But I don't remember Ollie helping him in the fight with the Thenn. Ollie kills Ygritte, of course. But when he's fighting the Thenn, I don't think he gets help from Ollie.
I mean, I don't know. Someone correct me or chime in. I could have sworn there was at least another instance of.
No, I don't think so, because the Ollie reveal is a pretty big moment because we weren't aware where he was. I don't.
Good point.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about the Thenn fight and the Carl Tanner fight is that Jon learns from the loss to Carl Tanner. Jon is out fighting Carl Tanner, but Carl Tanner gets the best of him by spitting in his eye. And Carl Tanner says, you know, you learned to fight in a castle, but you didn't learn this sort of brawn type tactics. And then Jon needs to be bailed out by one of Craster's wives, as you said, Sarah, exactly. But then when he's fighting the Thenn is so big, so strong, but Jon spits in the Thenn's eye. And so he learns from the loss to Carl Tanner. But anyway, whatever. Who knows who would win between Grey Worm and Jon? But it doesn't. It's a great point that we see that conflict, and I wonder how that will manifest itself. Will they fight? If they do fight, I like your idea, Sarah, that Arya could help Jon. Certainly, a third party coming to the aid of someone happens all the time in Game of Thrones fights. So yeah, it's possible. I feel so bad for Grey Worm. I mean, my God, this guy was on this humanization arc the whole time, and here's where he ends up. Boo.
Yeah, I will say though, I really liked the turn Arya took towards the end of the episode. Not only in her choosing to turn her back on killing Cersei, which had become pointless, but in like actively trying to save people's lives, which is not anywhere she's been as a character. She has not tried to save people. You know, the Battle of Winterfell notwithstanding, even some random people in the street, you know, and Arya is my favorite character. Okay, she has always been number one, always will be number one. Maisie Williams portrays her fantastically, a little over the top in her abilities sometimes, but it's a fantasy story, so I forgive it. If Jon can be an 18th level fighter, well, Arya can be a high level thief too, you know. But I really love, because her arc has always been about identity. She has the most sort of like nicknames in the book. She has like 20 different names she goes by. She's literally on a path to becoming no one, and she comes out the other side of it so full of agency, which we see in her interactions with Gendry. You know, she to me has the most satisfying arc, and we see at the tail end of it here now. I mean, I believe she is leaving King's Landing with the intent of killing Daenerys. Whether or not that actually happens, we'll see. But like, she's genuinely just trying to save people in hell on earth.
It's a great point. It's a great point. We talked earlier about the theme of protectors turning into killers, and Arya's maybe on the reverse arc, right? She's a killer turning into a protector. And that's really nice. Really nice. I love it. I'm glad that they've rescued her. And that makes me happy in the face of so many sad things, like Grey Worm, things not working out for his character arc. It's really, I like it about Arya. What do we think of, what happens to Jon Snow in the next episode? So, I mean, we've been on board here at NOWIE for quite some time with the idea of Jon ends up wandering north of the Wall. You know, Sansa rules. That's what I mean. I said before the season, I think Sansa will rule. Jon will end up wandering north of the Wall. There's a lot of support for that idea. It seems more likely than ever. But what does Jon do before that? What happens in the next episode with Jon? We think maybe Arya, maybe Bronn could be involved potentially in harming Dany. What's going to happen with Jon? Anyone?
I'm just so scared for my dude. I'm so scared for him. I will say that I really loved how Captain of the Golden Company did a complete 180 and showed us what Jon could have done at the Battle of the Bastards, but for who Jon is. I thought that was a really interesting bookend of two men's reactions of you know, against the same thing. My heart breaks for him. He does not want to rule. He's tried it before. He carries that weight of as he told Dany, I do not like what I am good at. I think it would be beautiful to tie in, I think, and pardon me, history buffs, help me out. The Yorks, Starks, and the Lannisters are who is
Lancasters.
Thank you. I think we would be satisfied and unsatisfied if real history repeats itself in Game of Thrones and we see Sansa and Tyrion who have mutual respect and some form of love for one another come together to rule, maybe at different ends of the Seven Kingdoms. I really loved, shouts to last episode when Painkiller Jane and Emma broke down, at least from the book version, how things could go for Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, having him go off into the north as a solo tragic individual. My heart bleeds for the guy. Like, oh my goodness, let him reunite with Ghost. Show us some grace, you know, at the end. Have the boy reunite with his dog. I don't know. I'm worried. Someone else.
You know, it's interesting. I suppose. Well, we have to finish the Jon thoughts, but I'm thinking about the mechanics of how this is going to work, and the rehabilitation of Arya solves a big problem, which is if Sansa were to rule from King's Landing, which does seem to be the way it's heading, right? Because I've always wondered why Sansa in a recent episode said, Stark, the men in my family don't do well down south. Why doesn't you just say the people? Well, I think the idea is that she's going to go down south. Plus, I thought they might blow up King's Landing. They didn't quite blow it up. Took a lot of damage, but it's still there. She could go. I think there's going to still be the Iron Throne there. So it seems like it's potentially being set up for her to rule from there. If she rules from there, Arya's got to be at Winterfell. Because Bran isn't good enough. He's not really a person. I don't think Jon Snow is going to be there. So it's got to be Arya, and they've rescued Arya. It can be Arya. Would they send Gendry there? You know, Gendry said, I don't know how to be a lord. None of it will be worth anything without you. Maybe Gendry doesn't care that much about Storm's End and ruling. Maybe he'd rather just be with Arya, and Arya would effectively rule, maybe with a little input from Super Bran. And, you know, and Gendry would be her husband. I don't know. What about that idea?
To piggyback off of Steven's love of Arya, she said, I am Arya Stark. She's owning it now. Shadow Fox, give us another podcaster to comment on this. Show Arya the meaning of haste and get her back home to Winterfell. Brown out.
Yeah. Melanie?
I actually was thinking that Jon might be a good candidate for ruling Winterfell because he doesn't want the kingship. And I think that ruling Winterfell would give him the opportunity to kind of complete his mission in taking care of the wildlings that want to come south. And I mean, I'm like getting my book canon, my show canon crossed here. I'm thinking about them taking over the gift. But that's obviously not going to happen on the show. But I feel like Winterfell could be a place where, okay, so we just saw Jon attempt to reclaim or claim his Targaryen heritage. He abandoned Ghost without a single pet, killed me inside, and he came south and did not do well in the south. Does not seem to be thriving in the south. Seems to be basically failing, and like just this episode, like you could see his face, just like he was like, God, why am I even fighting this fight? And I think it could be a place. I think Jon could be at a place where he is offered the throne and rejects it once again. He could be the one that kills Dany and then kind of pieces out and is like, she wasn't going to do a job. She wasn't going to do a good job. I'm not going to stick around and do the job. Somebody else needs to do the job because I'm not going to rule. And I can see him going back to Winterfell and hopefully, even if he doesn't go to Winterfell, I could see him going north. That just, to me, seems like the logical path for him. He has been faced with the horrors of war. He doesn't want that. He wants peace. He wants to help people. And the only way that he can do that really at this point is to go back north and to help people up there.
I had to hear you say that, Melanie, because I think you're right. I think we need that view represented. There's no reason to rule that out. Jon could go to Winterfell. I mean, I've thought that he would go north of the Wall and wander north of the Wall. I think we think probably in the books, his imagery is like a Benjen figure or maybe a knight potential.
And that's something that doesn't exist in the show. I was just saying to somebody in the chat that I want to see Jon as Cold Hands 2.0, but they haven't set that up in the show. So I don't think
you're right. I mean, I think there's definitely set up for him wandering north of the Wall, but there's no magical mechanism anymore. He appears to be, this show appears to be done with magic. We don't know for sure, but maybe wandering north of the Wall is very much alive as a possibility. Being at Winterfell is interesting. Maybe I was a little too quick to rule that out. I think it's not bad.
And another path for Jon could be just simple. He's tired of living. He came back and he just wants to rest.
Definitely. Right. I mean, I think death or wandering north of the Wall in one form or another have always been the ideas for Jon. And the thing is also, I think ruling from Winterfell, now that I think about it more, as you just said, Mel, it doesn't work that great, right? It doesn't fit with a lot of the Jon symbolism because the whole point of ruling at Winterfell is supposed to be then you have little Stark babies who then rule after you at Winterfell. I don't think that's going to be John. It's not going to happen, right? He's done with that phase of life forever. I mean, he's been burned again and again. This is just no way. So plus he died and came back as a magical creature. He's probably supposed to, according to the rules of this game, go away from power. So probably not, which would leave potentially Arya, and maybe Aryendri will still happen.
Yeah, there's always got to be a Stark in Winterfell. So who's it going to be?
Right, and the only two Starks who can further the line are Sansa and Arya. So if it's not going to be Sansa, maybe it's going to be Arya, unless there's some other thing we're not thinking of, or unless the Starks are not going to continue, which is possible. Stephen, do you have any thoughts about this?
I'm sorry, I'm in the chat at the moment. I missed probably the last minute or two of what you were
Don't worry,
saying.
totally good. We were just talking about who ends up at Winterfell. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Arya, Jon, Sansa? No one?
Okay. I think Sansa. I don't think King's Landing is really going to be habitable for years to come. I don't see it being the center of government. If the show had done more with Harrenhal, I might think Harrenhal, but I think Winterfell could be a new hub of ruling. And I also like the idea of Tyrion and Sansa. I always have liked them as a couple. Maybe I shouldn't. It's not really age appropriate, but I can't help it. I like Tyrion. I like Sansa. I like them as a couple. And Tyrion, I doubt very seriously will have divided loyalties after this episode, which was the one thing that Sansa cited as the reason they would never work out as a couple. So
brilliant, Stephen. Totally right. Look, I said before the season, I thought Sansa would rule and Tyrion would be her advisor and kind of her fake husband. And that's looking pretty good. Who knows? Maybe he'll be her real husband. As you say, the one thing that Sansa said was the impediment was Dany and his divided loyalties, and he doesn't have divided loyalties anymore. So I think you really hit the nail on that. I have thought always they were going to be together in the sense of her ruling and him by her side, and I think that's going to happen. But it's interesting your view that it would happen at Winterfell. Very, very possible. But I think it at the very least can't be ruled out that it's on the Iron Throne. We just don't know whether King's Landing is finished or not. It looks from the scenes for next episode like Dany is going to try to rule from there.
Oh, I did not watch that, so I couldn't comment.
Yeah. It looks like she's going to try to rule from there. Although I guess you can never tell from the scenes from the next episode too much. It's a dangerous game to play. But I think there may be I don't know. I think it's up in the air at least whether King's Landing is habitable, whether anyone is going to try to rule from there or not. And it's also up in the air whether anyone's going to rule all 7 kingdoms, right? Maybe there'll still be independence of the different kingdoms. I do wonder how Dany goes down, right? I don't wonder that much if Dany goes down. I am convinced she will. That could be wrong, of course, but I think she will. But how? Does someone kill her? Who? If so, who? Does Jon do it? You know what? Look, it's all started with Jon and Bran observing Ned Stark executing a Night's Watch deserter, right? He who passes the sentence should swing the sword. So maybe that's it. Let's say Arya or Bronn gets rid of the dragon. Does Jon sentence Daenerys to death for war crimes and execute her? Is there even the concept of war crimes here? Does it get invented in the last episode? Maybe so. I guess it's possible. Boy, that would be so devastating. It might be good. It might be what should happen in every.
What if our bittersweet ending is Dany wins? But she has to become kind of a monster to do it.
That would really, really suck. But
we only have to wait a week to find out. But that to me, that would be a truly it'd be a hard pill to swallow, to see somebody who I kind of held up as what, not my top character, but probably in my top 5 through the whole story, succumb to their baser instincts. That would be a truly bittersweet ending.
I think maybe a little too bitter and maybe not quite sweet enough. I think it's possible. I would read that as sending a different message from the one that I think the story is sending, but I could certainly be wrong, because it's a very interesting message. It's an equally interesting message. It's just a darker one, right? So I think the message of the story is it's very tempting to become a tyrant as a ruler, even for a good person. When you seek power, it's hard to avoid that transforming into the thing that you're trying to overcome. And I think that that's the ancient story. That happens. Some ostensibly good person, and a truly good person probably, ends up becoming the big bad, the Night King, ultimately. And then the modern plot, I think it could be viewed the way you're saying, Stephen, as basically a recapitulation of the ancient plot. Just check it out. History repeats. There's a reason the world is always broken or always deeply messed up. And this is why, even good people get wrecked on their journey to power. And when they get to power, they're not good people anymore. That is a totally valid, interesting artistic message. And maybe that's what the message will be. But I had thought that the message was going to be, no, that's what happened before. That's what usually happens. This time is different. This time that's going to be rejected. Dany does that, but she's not going to rule. It's going to be Sansa who rules. So, but you're right, Stephen. It's very possible that's how it happens. I would guess against it, but it's very possible.
You either die a hero or live to become a villain.
Solid.
Yeah. It's one way it could go. Maybe that's a good thought that's a possibility. Maybe Dany wins. That would be really cold. Really cold if Dany wins and this is Dany. Yikes. I wonder if the Dany-Jon interaction, because we've got 80 minutes of the last episode, so there's time for there to be a Dany-Jon interaction before whatever ends up happening to Dany. And I wonder what that interaction will be. I also wonder whether, I don't know, could the people turn on Dany for what she did? Is that possible?
I think she sees the writing on the wall, and that's what she said to Jon in the privacy of whichever room they were in. I think she doesn't like it, but now feels as though she doesn't have a choice. My girl, what are you doing? My boo.
You always have a choice. You always have a choice.
Were they at Dragonstone at the beginning of this episode when Dany burns Varys?
I feel like yes.
Yes, that was Dragonstone.
Because remember a previous nighttime burning on the beach at Dragonstone, right? Melisandre. That's what she does. It's at night. It's very similar. I think this is meant to evoke that. Maybe when that happened, I should have realized the way this was going.
Can I say one hot second? Who else out there in the ether for just a moment held their breath and said, is Varys the possibly hidden Targaryen actually going to get burned?
Totally.
Wait, yeah, I felt like that was the
That was a long pause, and it made me go,
It was the quietest, most subtlest. Hey, book readers were paying some attention, and I really loved how we had a throwback to Drogo sniffing Jon, Drogo sniffing Varys. We have a moment of like, how do I feel about this? Oh, wait, you're dead.
You're so right. That's awesome, Sarah. And you're right, because there is this similarity with sniffing, like with Jon. Oh, it's a great, great point. I also thought they did that well. First of all, seeing it's pitch black, and then you see the outlines of Drogon's head and face rising up behind Dany. It was so terrifying and eerie and kind of awe-inspiring. And then I loved it that you see it from Varys' perspective, the death from Varys' perspective, because it really brings home the humanity of this, the horror of it, which I think is what they're trying to say. And I also like the Tyrion-Varys interaction where Tyrion says, "It was me." Yeah, and he touches Varys's arm.
You have to wonder, since it also alludes to the fact that the night is dark and full of terrors, did Varys hear a voice in the flames or a dragon growling? I don't know.
Interesting. And that never got paid off. That's one of the things, I think, in the end, if we do look back on this, we're going to see that a whole bunch of things don't ever get paid off, and that's one of them. Another one, by the way, might be Bran. I mean, we've been told so many times, if you stay too long, you'll never come out, either of a person or an animal or the past. I mean, are we going to see Bran anymore? Presumably we'll see him a little bit, at least in the last episode, but did all that stuff just go nowhere? I mean, if it did, it did. Okay, but that's a little disappointing. Melanie, it looked like you were going to say something.
I was just kind of showing my disappointment in the Bran developments. Like, he seemed like such an important character. He was really, you know, the ghost in the machine, and they did nothing with him, really.
I agree. Unless there's something really interesting in the last episode, and I would bet against it. And that's one, Melanie, where I think we're just going to have to wait for the books, because there is a 100% chance, I think, that if George R.R. Martin finishes the books, the Bran storyline is going to be paid off huge. I mean, George said in his internal notes, which he's mad came to light, that the 5 main characters were Jon, Daenerys, Tyrion, Arya, and Bran. So, you know, and plus, you don't do all this with Bran and then not pay it off at all. And Benioff and Weiss clearly don't like magic, and they didn't pay it off because they don't like magic, but George doesn't have that problem. He'll pay it off somehow. So that's what we're just going to have to wait. We're just going to have to hope that George lives long enough to crank out not only the second to last book, which I think we believe is coming pretty soon, but also the last one.
I am keeping my fingers crossed until the bitterest of ends that Bran has told Tyrion something incredibly important that we don't yet know. And we did get confirmation that Bran has at least minimal distorted future foresight, because we did see Drogo's, it's too late at night, guys, sorry, shadow fly over King's Landing. That wasn't from in the past, that was now. You know, the darkness is still coming, folks. We just never wanted it to be the Dragon Queen. So keep your fingers crossed that there are some important loopholes left to be tied, and intentionally so.
I think that, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, Sarah. So first of all, you're totally right. What Sarah's talking about is that the shadow of Drogon flying over King's Landing that we finally saw in this episode pays off Bran's vision of that. Bran saw the future. Thank goodness that got paid off. He saw that happening, and this is when he saw it happening. So it happens. Well done, Sarah, for pointing that out. And I would hope, as Sarah says, even if you're Benioff and Weiss and you've decided we're not going to pay off a lot of the Bran stuff from prior seasons, you got to pay off the Bran stuff from this season, don't you? Right? You're making this season all at once. And so they have this scene where Tyrion at Winterfell goes to talk to Bran and says, you've had a strange story. And Bran says, stranger than most, right? Note the word stranger, right? Bran being equated with a stranger, god of death, and the faith of the seven. So Bran tells Tyrion something. You don't have to have that scene if you're never going to pay that off. And it's this season. It only has 6 episodes. So if you know that you're not going to pay it off, you just take out the scene. So it's not like they make the episodes and then you can't take that out. So I think Sarah's got to be right. I would hope that he told him something relevant. Maybe he told him stuff that Tyrion's going to put into A Song of Ice and Fire when Tyrion writes the history of all of this, if it is Tyrion and not Samwell, or if it's both Tyrion and Samwell. So it could be that. But it really ought to be something, because if that gets dropped, the words that Varys heard in the Flames are going to get dropped. I mean, Varys is dead now. That's the end of that. They brought it up in the show. It's not. We're not going to find out. I mean, they re-brought it up. They brought it up late in the game in the show with Kinvara, the Red Priest in Marine, saying to Varys, "Do you remember what the voice said to you in the Flames? Do you want me to tell you?" And she doesn't tell, and we never find out. Never gets referred to again. So, okay, they won't pay off everything, but they got to pay off things that happen this season, I would hope. So hopefully that we find out what Bran talked to Tyrion about. And I don't know. I have no idea what he talked to him about. If it doesn't go in a way, if it doesn't go anywhere, the value of that would be humor value. That'll be hilarious. You know,
always finding that silver lining. I want to bring up something from the chat because Questing Beast had a really interesting point. She says that the little bird will poison Dany.
Yes, possible for sure.
Which I think is also really kind of a cool idea. Bronn and the little bird together. Bronn takes out the dragon. Little bird poisons the dragon queen. There, we wrote it. We solved it.
And there was that really telling line too, Stephen. The greater the risk, the larger the payoff.
Yep.
Right, which is also a Bronn reference, right? Because that's what Bronn's life is all about up to this day. Yeah, I love it, Stephen. Wait, did you say that someone in the chat, was it Nessie, Questing Beast?
Yes, Questing Beast.
Nessie. Fantastic Nessie. Nessie is, you know, a beloved and hugely valued member of this community. I'm lucky enough that I'm going to be on a panel with her at Con of Thrones. And so, yeah, that's a great point, Nessie. And also, she's invaluable as a moderator, all the more so now that Stephen is splitting his duties here. So, yeah, maybe that's it. So that would be very interesting, wouldn't it? If the lowest, so you got this character, talk about a character who basically doesn't even exist, right? This character we don't know anything about, shows up in the second to last episode, a child, a girl child. If she's the one who ends up dealing the death blow to Dany, that actually works, I think. I think that's very possible. Just like you were saying, I think, was it Melanie before was saying, and maybe Sarah, maybe all of you were saying that, you know, sometimes the idea of the lowliest killing someone. Stephen brought up that example of the person with a longbow who killed a king in England. Sarah, I had seen nodding, knew about that historical example. I
did not. I just thought it was so on point. I had to nod vigorously.
Oh, great. Yes. I'm glad to hear you say it, Sarah, because I didn't know either.
Yeah.
But yeah, this idea of the lowliest killing the highest could happen. So that's interesting, the idea of that girl. What do you think, Melanie, the girl poisoning Dany?
So yeah, you know, I'm going to say it again, even though I don't want it, the banality of evil. You know, this little child who really doesn't know what she's doing, killing the queen. It fits in with what we've been seeing so far. You know, these kind of anticlimactic deaths. So yeah, and thank you, Ryan Beagles, for pointing out that those deaths are anticlimactic.
Yeah, and maybe in some cases intentionally anticlimactic, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes the point is supposed to be you don't want to have a satisfying big thing, right? You don't want all the deaths to be like Sandor and Gregor.
Exactly.
Right. You want some to be like Locke and Qyburn, or even, dare I say it, Rhaegal.
Yeah.
Out of the blue. Rhaegal deserved better. That was...
Can I just say, cinematically, if I'm not butchering these words so late at night, anyone else, I can't remember the Mortal Kombat, like, big boss with the 4 hands. As soon as I saw the mountain, like, rip off his shirt and look all gross and gnarly, I thought, are we in Mortal Kombat as, like, the fire lightning stuff? I was like, I really feel like we've climbed the mountain of Mortal Kombat. That's what we're watching right now. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying that's good. but I literally heard the music to Mortal Kombat begin.
Mortal Kombat!
Yeah.
I don't know Mortal Kombat, but fire lightning is this group's kind of thing, because that's sort of the symbolism, lightning and the fire of the gods and human beings trying to get that power too quickly. It was also interesting to see Arya with the horse at the end. I think that horses, my guess as to the symbolism of horses, and Mel, you tell me, what you think about this, is that, they've been doing a lot of contrasting horses with dragons this season. So, for example, Tormund says to Jon, "You're not going to ride your dragon south," and Jon says, "Just a horse." And Jon says, way up north with Dany in the first episode of this season, after they ride dragons, Jon rides for the first time. He says, "You've ruined horses for me," right? So the dragon versus the horse is a thing, and a big theme in the books and the show is you're not supposed to access power too quickly and too much. If you do, it leads to ruin, which is maybe why we should have expected more for this to happen to Dany. Dany accesses power through dragons. That's the wrong way to do it. The right way to do it is Podrick rubbing two sticks together, right? And you don't get a lot of fire, and you don't get it quickly, and it takes a while to learn how to even do it at all. But when you get it, you can control it. And if you don't get it that way, you can't control it, and terrible things happen, catastrophes happen. Better to have less power but control it better than to have more power and not be able to control it. And so Arya with the horse at the end, maybe the point is that Arya's the antidote to Dany. Let's say Arya and the horse are going to kill the dragon, perhaps, and whatever Arya's going to do, she's going to do it in some old-fashioned, back-to-basics way, not some superhuman, faceless man type way. She's on her path back to being a person, the kind of person who rides a horse, not the kind of person who does all sorts of superhuman, magical stuff that ultimately is very destructive and kind of murdery. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Melanie, what do you think about that symbolism analysis is decent?
So, okay, I think your symbolism analysis is on point. Absolutely. I think that's a really lovely way of looking at it, John, in regards to the fire of the gods, and size matters, I guess, is what they're trying to tell us. I had a thought and I totally forgot it. Oh my gosh, it's getting late. I'm sorry.
Was maybe that the purity of the white horse covered in blood is matched by Arya's purity in choosing not to kill, covered in blood, ready to ride home, like the horse goddess her aunt is. That's what I think you were trying to pick up.
Because my read was, "Behold, a pale horse, and the name of him that sat on it was Death." Because Arya had murder in her eyes in that moment. So that's how I interpreted that scene.
I think that you guys, what Steven said is more like it than what I was saying, because it's a weirwood symbol. I mean, it just is, right? The weirwood trees are these white trees with red leaves. You got this white horse with red all over it. Like, this is a weirwood.
And also Arya, she was also red and white. She was covered in ash and had blood. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love it. Take it to the bank. Take it to the Iron Bank. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I think for sure. And so then I guess we could ask ourselves, so what are they doing with the weirwood symbolism here? And I would like to think it's positive weirwood symbolism, but usually not, right? Usually if you think about the color white, the White Walkers, they're whites. The color white very much associated with death, and especially when it's mixed with red here, which is, blood, the color of blood. It's all about death symbolism and kind of the bad guy symbolism. And the weirwood trees represent, this fire of the gods, this human access to power of nature that humans were never supposed to have access to, supernatural power and green seer power. And the reason the leaves turn red probably is that there's this ancient abomination, right? Some evil thing occurs where the weirwood's power is used. They're forced to do this terrible thing or to help Azor Ahai or the Night King or whatever do this terrible thing, and they have blood on their hands, right? They're described as bloody hands in the books. So and fiery hands. So here, the weirwood symbolism with Arya and the horse probably isn't good news.
So what do you think of this, John? You know, the other component of being a weirwood is that you have a really good memory. And we have Arya on this, and like I hesitate to even talk about arcs after what we saw today. But we have Arya going from losing her identity to reclaiming her identity. She's going from a place where she's supposed to forget her identity to a place where she's supposed to remember her identity and her stark nature. And she goes from a place of innocence to a place of witnessing this horror in King's Landing. And so like coupling her identity arc with this loss of innocence arc, maybe what we're seeing, and symbolically using her as a memory. Maybe she'll go back, and all season long, I've been wanting to have this payoff so bad. I wanted Arya to go back to her dancing lessons with Serial Pharrell and have a moment where she could use what he taught her, you know, about being as calm as, sorry, that's my cat, calm as still water, et cetera, et cetera. I really want to see her have a moment like that. And so if she's riding off symbolically as a weirwood with all of these memories, I really want to see her have a moment where she has some kind of payoff like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm like way out in left field.
I think you're
really satisfying to me.
I think it's very much open whether clearly they've got a specific idea in mind for this symbolism. But I can't figure out what it is they've got in mind. And as you say, Melanie, I think you're absolutely right. It could be one thing or another, right? It could be positive if you think about, for example, it being a horse and horses representing the right way to access power. It could be weirwoods in a positive way, maybe, right? Arya's always had Child of the Forest symbolism, and maybe back to the weirwoods in a good way. Or it could be bad. It could be like Arya had a moment where it looked like maybe she could get away from this. Think of the Hound when he has this interlude with Septon Ray, and it looks like he's going to turn to a different kind of life. And then Septon Ray gets murdered and in the show, and he gets strung up from crossbeams, and the Hound walks away and grabs an axe on the way out. The Hound can never fully, he does change, but he never fully changes because of that. And maybe Arya, too, tried to get away from it and couldn't quite get away, and this is what symbolizes that. So I don't know. It could be one.
That regression on her arc would be definitely bittersweet. Ugh. Yeah,
that would be so disappointing. We see it with Jaime, right? It looked like Jaime was heading for one thing. He backslides. I hope that's not what happens with Arya. If it does happen with Arya as well as Jaime, that would be terribly disappointing. At least it won't happen with everyone. I don't think it's going to happen with Sansa. We're not going to see Sansa go back to being whatever she was in the first few episodes of the show. That's for sure. And I wonder what's going to become of Brienne. I wonder if we'll get anything with Brienne. I mean, in a way, she's had her big finale scene already, but maybe she'll become, maybe she's the head of the captain of Sansa's Queen's Guard, and that's good enough. Stephen, any thoughts about anything?
Generally speaking, no. We've said a lot about this episode.
Yeah, we can wrap it up.
I mean, if you give me a week, I'll have thoughts. But there's so much that happened. It's going to take a while to process it. I need to watch it again. Again, I think I liked it for the most part, but I'm just having such a difficult time wrapping my head around Daenerys that I still don't know where I am.
Yeah, Benioff and Weiss will tell you it's okay, Stephen. It's all okay because of Queen Sansa.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I thought Dany was going to die in the end, but I didn't think that she'd go rogue all the way.
I didn't either. I mean, I thought it was a misdirect, but clearly I was wrong.
Yeah, and I have to say that what Emma's been saying has a lot of force to it, as it always does, which is that they really have kind of made John into like the good guy, right? The guy as the good guy. And I know they're going to say no, Sansa's going to rule in the end. John will just like wander north, and but
yes, the heterosexual white man is the good guy.
Right, because that's the thing. Even if John isn't going to rule in the end, which I don't think he will, and even if he does wander north, which I think he will, that doesn't totally solve the problem, right? You still made the guy who everyone says is so great, who always does the right thing.
Right.
Great. You still made that the heterosexual white guy. Not the greatest look in the world, especially when the stuff they did with Sansa this season wasn't, everything I had hoped and dreamed. They did do some stuff last season, making her into a good ruler, which I really liked and thought was critical. This season, they talk about how smart she is, which I like. But, we mostly saw her, like, acting jealous of Dany or wanting...
Yeah, but, like, in hindsight, that's going to look like she's smart.
Oh, you're right. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. You're right. Now it can be read as not jealousy, but correctly reading that Dany was dangerous. Fair enough. I like that.
I want to give Royce a castle. My bro's been following a young little Robin for too long. He's been pulling his weight. Lady Winterfell owes him one. Give the Onion Knight his dues. Give him a nice castle. You know what, Bronn? You get a castle like Oprah Winfrey style. Give away these castles. Got too many.
I've got one other thing.
And then I also noted in the chat for us, let's have a surprise ending. We know that Dunk's family, since George R.R. Martin confirmed it, Brienne's part of that lineage. Dunk never really married anyone and fathered babies. And we know that Jaime's seed is strong. And we know that we have at least 2 instances. Happy Mother's Day, Brienne. Like, let's make this happen and raise a young, sweet little Tommen who knows how to bravely fight in battle. Let's see. You know what? Stop making me cry. Give me some happy endings.
That's I'm okay with this.
Have you seen the meme on Twitter about the soldier with the big bushy beard who's like the unsung hero of A Song of Ice and Fire? And
no.
he's like, it's a real extra, I guess, or a background artist.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a really big beard, and he's survived like every battle scene there is. He was in this episode. He even got like the camera was like close up on his face for a hot second, and he's my beard brother. So I was super happy to see him.
I think your beard is slightly more glorious than his, but that. I might be biased.
Let's be real. That guy has got a fantastic beard. I could only hope to have a beard that glorious.
And well, I don't know. You would know, Stephen. I want to say to someone, Ryan Beagles in the chat says, all that we don't trust Dany stuff had no foundation in the show. Dany was trustworthy until this season. Ryan Beagles, I want to say, I thought that too. But Stephen Stark pointed out earlier in this live stream that Dany did crucify all of the masters in Slaver's Bay, or in Marine, I think, including ones who hadn't been involved in crucifying those children, like Hizdar's or Lorak's father. So we did see indications of this going pretty far back. So Stephen corrected me on that, and I thought the same thing you did, but there were indications. I think if we look carefully at it, we'd probably see that we should have been a little more aware. And she did do other things. She burned one of the masters.
Right.
Yeah.
Just a random, it's your turn to die.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. And Dickon Tarly was a pretty nice guy. Yeah, he didn't bend the knee, but I mean, Tyrion was telling her, don't kill Dickon. And she didn't really need to kill Dickon. Randall is one thing, Dickon was another. So yeah, there were indications, but still, I don't know. So maybe I just saw what I wanted to see. Maybe we liked her a little too much.
I think that goes to your point, your excellent point, John, though. that once your power gets too big, something happens. We were rooting for Dani for very valid reasons until when? Until her dragons became uncontrollable beasts. Once that power got too big, something happened. I'm not saying it's for good. I'm not saying it's for bad, but I loved your point about that. It becomes an atomic bomb.
Yeah, that's also, when hearing you say that, Sarah, is there any possibility that the dragon did that without Dani?
Which part?
Killing the people in King's Landing in this episode.
I am really excited to see what happens, except my only hesitation is some people don't love Emilia Clarke's acting. I do. You get this beautiful, just like, oh, I felt sick seeing her face twist. And so is Drogon reading her feelings and reacting to that? Is that Drogon himself? Is that just like as we saw before, Dani like, Drogon, get me back to my people. You helped me in this gladiator ring, but like, I gotta do something, you know, dragons gone wild. We will see. We will see.
I think you're right, Sarah. I think it probably was Dani. Yeah. So, okay.
One last point.
Definitely.
Wouldn't it be so flipping bittersweet? As we were talking, I started thinking about this. Jon Sweet Snow has never, ever lied to us. And how many times have we been told in this episode and before, she will always be my queen? You sure about that still?
Oh, wonderful, Sarah. I'm so glad you said that before we wrap it up, because you're right. Jon, Mr. Always Tell the Truth, he can't keep the secret. You know, that would be not exactly a lie, but it would be misleading. So he tells the truth. Sansa breaks the promise, outright breaks the promise. Not the kind of thing Jon Snow does. But now, you're right, Sarah. He kept saying, you'll always be my queen.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not, right? Probably he turns on Dani here, which is maybe the thing that breaks Jon. You know, that's not who Jon is. And maybe that's why he has to wander north in the end. Maybe Jon Snow himself finally undergoes this transformation where he does the thing he said he wasn't going to do. He is the betrayer. Calvin Graves said earlier in the chat that if he kills Dani, it's like Azor Ahai killing Nissa Nissa.
Exactly. I mean, you know, D&D, for better or worse, a lot of the things we wanted to see, stop giving us false hope, gentlemen. But I guess it's still on the table. I don't know. We'll see.
Right. That is interesting. Melanie, thoughts about this?
You know, I said in our private chat, like, I think Sarah might just have called it, those might be Jon's very words. You'll always be my queen, as he kills Dani. Like, how heartbreaking would that be for the viewership? How impactful would that be if it was a kind of a mercy kill, like an Old Yeller moment, like, you're crazy, boy, but we got to put you down. You know, it would really tug at the heartstrings, and it would be, I think, a really impactful thing to have him say that to her as she dies or as he kills her. So, yeah, I think that's a good call, Sarah.
What's Sarah?
She looked so bloody, broken.
Yeah.
You know, oh, take a rewatch and just, my stomach was rolling. She was broken and she knew it and Jon knew it, and yet they kept going, and just hold on to your butts, kids.
As we talked about it for so long, I finally kind of came around to the idea that maybe in the end, I'm going to think this is all more justified than I thought before. Because I liked Dani, but maybe maybe I was led down that path. You know, maybe they want you to be led down that path. But what you're always supposed to realize is no matter how many great things she does, and she does do great things, it's not supposed to happen with dragons. You know, it never was. And so maybe this has been kind of being set up from the very beginning.
This was fun. I love it. I love this.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Me too. Me too. Last words for each of you. Let's go. Mel, Sarah, Stephen. Mel, last word.
3 words. So much angst.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Sarah.
I love you all. I'll see you on the other side.
Wonderful. And Stephen, Sarah, you don't have to leave this second. We're all going off in a second. Stephen.
Just wow. I mean, I can't believe that. Yeah, that's pretty much sums up my feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. It was amazing. It was interesting. I'm thrilled to have gone through it with you guys. That was very, very helpful for me. And I hope everybody who watched enjoyed it. I hope we all together learned some stuff. I certainly learned a lot. We'll be back pre-game and post-game next week, Sunday, the day of the final episode of the series, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on this YouTube channel, Bronze Terrace YouTube channel. We'll have the NOWIE pregame, and then right after the final episode, we'll have the NOWIE postgame. Thank you all, everyone. Thank you to the moderators. Thank you to everyone who watched and the people in the chat. And thank you most of all to the people who did this here with me. Emma, in absentia now, Melanie, Sarah, and Stephen. You guys are fantastic. Big heart. I appreciate it so much. And we will see you all next week.